want to highlight too. Celtics go 3-1 on this road trip, and outside of that second half in Oklahoma City, pretty much every other quarter and every other half of this West Coast road trip, the Celtics passed the test in which we wanted to see them pass. So get rid of that second half in Oklahoma City. The other halves, they were all great for the Boston Celtics. That first half was even great for the Celtics against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And tonight, yes, they slipped up a little bit there in the second quarter, and there were times in the third quarter you can say so. But the first quarter and the fourth quarter of this game specifically, to start the game, you set the tone for the Boston Celtics if you're them. And of course, to end the game, they went and ran ahead of the Nuggets. So great performance from the Boston Celtics at the end of this one tonight. Could have been a little cleaner throughout, but a win is a win considering the circumstances as of late. And we all have to remind ourselves too, this is still January for this Boston Celtics team. The real end goal is later on down the line. We still want to see those good habits be built up and up and up. And right now, I think that's what the Celtics are starting to really do as we go into January, nearing All-Star break.
Yeah, I mean, it is the definition of a win is a win. Statistically, I liked what I saw. I think from the eye test, I'm a little bit less optimistic than you guys. I didn't love this whole let's turn it on type of mentality I kind of saw from Boston tonight. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. All in all, though, road trip wise, I think it was a very successful road trip. I agree. I mean, really, over the 16 quarters, right? The Celtics only 16 quarters. The Celtics really only played like about 3 bad quarters. Second quarter tonight, the third quarter against Oklahoma, and then the fourth quarter also against Oklahoma. So I think overall, I was very pleased with what I saw. And I think these are the first steps that Boston needs to take in order to get back on track and have a successful January. However, I do think there are more steps to be taken. And I do think that the Celtics, I'm not going to sit here and say, okay, I'm confident now and the Celtics are back and the Celtics are looking like that 2025 back-to-back NBA championship level.
I don't think you can sit here, and I don't think it'd be fair to say where it's like you can confidently say, oh yeah, the Celtics are going to go back-to-back. I don't think you can confidently say that we're at the point where we were last season. Despite only being a 2-game difference in the win-loss column compared to where we were last year. But I will say this. The Celtics in December were treacherous to watch, even in their wins. Even Mazzulla said it. There's been wins where we've come back to the locker room pissed. You know, we've had issues with some of the wins that we've had this year. I think this is a really, really, really good sign. Right, I get it. The Celtics are third in the association when it comes to a win-loss record and the power rankings, you know. But
it makes no sense to me. It does not feel like that.
Here's the thing. This road trip for the Celtics is extremely encouraging to me. With the circumstances, like Seamus said, we've had a rough December. Celtics, despite the 54-point win before that win against Toronto, Celtics really were not playing their best brand of basketball. Go back to that Indiana game. Yes, we did split the series with them 1-1 on the home court, but that second game, Celtics looked really, really, really worn down and figured out. Come out west against 4 really good Western Conference teams. There's not like a really bad Western Conference team out there. Record-wise, New Orleans, yes, obviously, but they've been bitten by the injury bug horrendously. You know, we're going to get a real good look at them on Sunday. But my point is for how bad the Celtics have been in the last month in terms of, you know, what they've gone through, this is a really good sign to go out on this West Coast trip and come back with 3 wins, 3.5 wins on this West Coast trip, coming home to a Sacramento team who's been on fire. That's going to be another really good Western Conference test for the Boston Celtics, who we'll talk about later on in the show. But I really like what I see from Boston. Tonight, win's a win. You're right, Rob. A win's a win. You didn't have Jokic, but at the same time, that's not when you lay down. Because we've seen this team specifically this year when teams are missing their star players, a.k.a. Indiana missing Halliburton, to Atlanta missing Trae Young. Just the other night, Oklahoma City missing Chet Holmgren. So Celtics have kind of laid their foot off the gas pedal when stars have been out.
So I think real quick, Seamus, the one thing I just wanted to add on my initial thoughts. I think the one positive to pull, not one positive, I should say that. Sorry. The biggest positive in my book you should pull from this game, that Boston didn't have it going in that second quarter, taking jump shots. They instantly went to the rim. And I think that
Absolutely.
is exactly what you want to see.
Which
Sorry,
is what they faded away from against the
Right.
Oklahoma City Thunder.
You're
Right.
completely right, Rob. But I also think in terms of this team turning it off and on, I'm not a huge fan of it either right now. But I also want to look at this stretch a little more optimistically, especially after some
Right.
of the
That's
results
fair.
we've been seeing, because you have to like I think what for Celtics Nation and us included, we look at the Celtics team almost like we look at teams of the past. This is our first season in which we've defended a title and really covered a team in which was defending a title. And I believe the mood around title defending teams is a lot different than a team inching towards a title because in the past we've really been hitting on points of you need to be building good habits throughout the
Right.
season and really putting up those building blocks in order to attain that championship. Well, this team knows what it takes for them to ultimately go out and win a championship. And yes, we talked about okay, the road to the championship is going to be much different this season, and the Celtics it's going to be a much tougher road to the point where the Celtics are really going to have to play their A game. So they really have to be building up those good habits. Yet at the same time, the Celtics know what their good habits are and what their
Mm,
good habits aren't. And because ultimately the other day in OKC, I think it would take a blind man to really if you looked at the film in the first and
Yeah.
second half, it would take a blind man to say, "Oh yeah, the Celtics, they have no idea what they did wrong. They have no The offense in the second half was stagnant. The offense
right.
in the second half was shot chucking. That is the worst form of the Celtics offense. And we know the best form is what you're talking about, Rob, is when they're going down towards the hole, down towards the paint, collapsing the defense, creating options both in the pick and roll and on the perimeter, and even that floater that, of course, layup at the rim as well. They're just creating all these options when you're going down aggressively towards the paint, towards the hole. That's when the Celtics are at their best. And we're seeing that in moments with the Celtics, particular during this last, really since New Year's Eve against the Raptors, coming off that horrible Indiana Pacers game that Justin mentioned. We're seeing that more and more often. But I almost want to take this stretch in December and really this season with a little bit of a grain of salt, knowing that we did win the championship last year, that Tatum, I almost said Brown. Brown unfortunately left off the Olympic team, but Tatum, White, Holiday, they were all in the Olympics. They continued to play basketball into August. They've been playing basketball into nearly June for the last 3 seasons. And right now, I feel like these are really beginning to start the dog days of the season for the Celtics because they're just kind of waiting for that moment to turn up. Because I think about somebody as simple as Al Horford right now. Al Horford, look at the amount of threes he took in December. I don't think that's how Al Horford is best utilized. Al Horford is best utilized, yes, as a pick and pop member and somebody who can hit the three every now and then, but he takes advantage of those low post matchups and you can pass with them out of the low post. I think the Celtics really, in my mind, are waiting to exhaust that part of Al Horford's game later in the season, particularly in the playoffs when that could be Al Horford's last run in the NBA. I'm just
Cool.
saying it now. If we win the title again, he might retire this
God,
season.
rip my
And
heart out at one in
I
the
know, I
morning, man.
know.
What are you
But
doing to me?
but Al Horford right now, it's like if we were to play him in that manner, we would just be exhausting his tank for what would eventually be the playoff run later on down the line. So I look at something as little as that and go, the Celtics, they might not be playing their best basketball right now, but I think this team knows their level in which they can go to. And the
Right.
turning it on and off is not particularly great for this team because we want to see those habits built. But we also have to remind ourselves that this is a championship level team that was dominant when they were on their A game and when they were all healthy together last year, which again, only 2 games this year. And Derek White out of the lineup tonight. Only 2 games in which the top six has played together this season. If we get that health good later on down the line, if we get it all straightened out into February, March, April, really March and April, we want to see this team turning up to the next level. Right now, it's on and off, not great, but at the same time, because of the circumstances in which met the Celtics the last 3 seasons and the fact the team won a title, it does feel like there's some complacency from the squad playing in December and January, knowing, all right, the beginning of the season hype is gone, and we're not quite to the playoffs, the All-Star break yet. We don't really need to be playing our best. And Rob, you even said it on a couple of post games ago. The seeding right now, yes, people are looking at the seeding going, oh, we're behind the Cavs by quite a few games right now, and it's a margin which we're not going to make up very easily, if at all. Yet, I think it's definitely more important at this point in time, and I know you'd agree with me that going into the playoffs playing well is way more
Oh,
important than the seeding right
1,000.
now.
Yeah.
The
I
seeding,
think,
because we're
yeah,
giving up the seeding, I believe, in our record. We're just giving it up. But that was almost to be expected out of the Celtics team. After winning a championship, are they going to show up in November, December, January? Are those 3 months specifically? Is the team going to show up?
right,
We
right.
didn't
That's a
know,
very
but
good point.
going
It's a
down
very
the
good
stretch,
point.
that's when we're going to start to really watch the good habits play out. But we still want to see them, in flurries and really in big stretches, regardless, because we cannot be seeing a 500 basketball team. We have to see the team a loss here and there. That Oklahoma City loss, the second half was putrid, but coming out of that game, and Rob, you even said it at the beginning of that post game, you would think that Oklahoma City might get that game with the winning streak they're on. You're playing at their house. If you go
Right,
three
Right.
and one on the West Coast road trip and you lose to OKC, that's not the worst game in the
right.
world to lose. So right now where the Celtics are, it's not the most ideal situation, but at the same time, I think they're right on par with what this team, after winning a championship last year, now defending it, that's really the level in which they're at, and really the trajectory in which they're on is they can still go back to back, but we're just really waiting until that portion of the season when the Celtics they play an entire game like they did the first and fourth quarter tonight, and not like the second and third.
Yeah, I think Rob's point on the whole shot distribution and what he saw tonight, I think that goes a lot with your point, Franco, that you made earlier in the show when you were giving your takeaways from the game, where the Celtics, this is, and I mentioned it in the group chat earlier tonight as well. This game was kind of proving the pudding that the Celtics control their own destiny in terms of they very much so control when they want to play and when they don't want to play, when they want to relax and when they want to push on the gas pedal. And tonight, in my opinion, was again the proof in the pudding. And I think the Celtics are capable every single night of having a game like tonight on the offensive end, where they're pounding the paint, where they're grabbing rebounds, where they're driving and they're generating their threes off of driving kicks, off the pick and pops. You don't see that too often with the Celtics. Celtics at times get ISO heavy, which kills them at times. What else do the Celtics do? I lost my train of thought. It's 1:30 in the morning. I've lost what I was going to say. What the Celtics do? With their 3-pointers. No, I thought I
Are you
had it. I didn't
dumping
have
on the sponsorship right now?
I didn't.
What's up,
I
Duncan?
didn't. I didn't have it. I
Yeah,
didn't. I
late
don't
night
have
please
it.
hit us
games.
up, Duncan. These late night.
Yeah, we're
we
gonna
gotta, we
need
gotta
you
West
because
Coast for another one.
next week we're really, or 2 weeks from now, we're really on the West Coast. 10:30 starts. But in all seriousness, I guess the point I'm trying to make is the Celtics. There's no reason the Celtics should be early in the games. What they do. This is the point. It came back to me now when I was getting ready to move on. Early in the games, it seems like the Celtics get going from distance and they make a couple threes and they think they're like hot stuff, and they just don't stop shooting them. And even there's times where even Scal says like, okay, maybe we're getting a little 2-3 happy here. Celtics get 3 happy early on. So I'd like to see the Celtics really kind of, come back down to earth, not so much blow the kisses to the crowd early in games, and really engage in the offensive end, because you're having a starting lineup. You run a pretty solidly big starting lineup with Drew Holiday. I think he's 6'4" as your point guard. And then Kristaps Porzingis 7'3", Jason Tatum 7'10" with shoes on. I mean, or 6'10" with shoes on. I mean, come on, like those guys should be dominating the post, dominating the mid range. And at times you see these guys hang around the 3-point line, which to me, you're mismatching up against a lot of guys. So I'd like to see the Celtics really turn it on consistently, because listen, okay, say what you want, championship hangover, whatever, Celtics, whatever, they get complacent. There's no way that they don't control when they want to turn on and when they don't. Like,
Yeah, but that's a problem.
No, it is a problem, Rob. And I 100% agree with you. That is an issue, and that's something that they got to figure out, because that's not going to fly. That is not going to fly. He's only 19. I mean, 7'10". You're never gonna let that one go, David, are you?
He's
Go ahead,
a
Seamus.
comedian.
Yeah.
No, but this was kind of part of my point earlier in the post game in terms of the Celtics. They understand what they need to do in order to win another championship. And Jason Tatum even said it after the game. He mentioned the Celtics going downhill and matching the physicality of the Denver Nuggets in this game. So, and even looking at every game since the Indiana game, really that New Year's Eve game against the Raptors, the Celtics have put an emphasis on going downhill, going towards the hole, and really generating their offense off of collapsing the defense, putting multiple eyes onto one guy, and then allowing the offense to flow from that state. And outside of that second half in Oklahoma City, we've seen it a lot lately with this Boston Celtics team, and they undoubtedly know when to turn it on. And unfortunately, during the stretch, they turn it off during times in which not the most ideal times to turn off. Think about the second half in Oklahoma City. We think about even tonight in the second quarter against the Denver Nuggets. And this is where I think, is it a problem? How much of a problem is it really? Because at this point in time, the Celtics, we're getting further on in history with Brown and Tatum. We're getting further on in history with this core of Drew Holiday, Derek White, Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, Horford, and Horford specifically. Say Horford, he's going to be going on 39 years old into the finals. Kristaps Porzingis, he's almost 10 years into the league. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they're almost a decade into the league. Derek White and Drew Holiday's over a decade into the league. All of these guys are nearly a decade into the league, if not over a decade into the league. They've won a championship. They played basketball into March, April, May, and June. I shouldn't mention March. Everybody plays in March, but April, May, and June specifically. And from that, it almost feels like at this point in the year, the team is going, we don't want to turn our energy level up to where we know we need to be because we need to be there later on in the season
Look at
when
the
we want to
Cavs.
be really running past teams. And so I again where expectations are, we've always had expectations of really building those building blocks, yet there have been building blocks built in past seasons with this specific core. Last season with this top six that we have, but even more so with Brown and Tatum, Derek White and Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, and Al Horford before that. And from that, I believe it's possible the Celtics look at this point in the season and go, okay, we want to turn it up at times. We want to achieve a good record for at least the second seed, at least the 3 seed in the conference, specifically the second seed right now, because the first seed getting a little out of hand there. We don't want to fall down to 3. I don't know where Justin just went, but I think he's going to go get some Dunkin' here so he can rejuvenate his mind. But anyway, the Celtics, at this point in the season, it's the dog days for the Celtics because they're in a moment in which they're not really playing with hype behind them anymore. They're not playing with hype because the start of the season is gone and the end of the season isn't quite here. And they're ebbing and flowing in terms of when they want to turn it on and when they want to turn it off. And yes, I would agree that that can be a bad habit, but at the same time, I look at it and go, at what point is it almost the energy exhaustion of the Celtics, their intensity, their energy? They're not matching other teams every single night. But as Tatum said, they know what they need to do in order to do that. And Tatum wasn't saying that in terms of like those weren't his exact words. He wasn't saying that in terms of, oh, we would just turn it on whenever we want. But he was specifically saying this is what we need to do in order to turn it on. So looking from that, the team knows, yes, we need to be physical. We need to play with intensity. We need to play with energy. We need to play downhill. We need to play in transition with pace. And we need to be making good decisions, specifically on both ends of the floor. Really, we saw defensively that last stretch, that 2 and 4 stretch, that the defense was just as much of a problem as the offense was. And the offense as of late, that's what's kind of killed the Celtics because the defense has looked a little bit better. But during those stretches, during the stretch now into January, I juggle it back and forth on whether, okay, the Celtics, they need to be building good habits, but they also need to be pacing themselves in order to play good basketball later on into April, May, June. And I just wonder, which one does it need to be more of right now? Does it need to be more pacing in January? Or does it need to be those habits being built? Because the habits in the past have been there, and these guys know what they need to do in order to turn it on. But those still need to be built regardless as the season moves on. But it's the question of how much at this particular point in the season in January. So it's definitely one of those conversations that's tough to have because the balance of what we're talking about, it can be either or. And you could say, well, we've seen teams in the past, yes, they've wanted to pace themselves, but then at a certain point in the season, they just kind of fall apart because they haven't been doing what they need to be doing all season. So there's a little bit of both right now with the Boston Celtics, but I would say an optimistic point is the fact that this team did win a championship last year, and I know that year is gone, but the players and coaching staff on the team, they know what they need to do in order to bring their level to the next level because we've been seeing it as of late. After that Indiana game, it just felt like this team was done with that 2-4 stretch, done with that 6-game stretch where they were just not doing what they needed to do in order to win ball games. And we saw a new level from the Celtics. They beat the Raptors by 54 points, just completely obliterated them in the last day of 2024. And then rattled off a little mini 3-game win streak, Minnesota, Houston, into the first half of that Oklahoma City game. Now you play a putrid second half in Oklahoma City, but then you come out tonight and play the way that they needed to play again outside of really that second quarter there. You could say what you want about the third quarter as well. I thought it got a little bit better near the end of the third quarter. And of course, into the fourth quarter, the Celtics turned their level up once again and came away with, I think this is a pretty crucial win on their schedule because if they lost this, I think we're going back to the conversation of, oh, what's
I
wrong with
agree.
what's going on with the consistency of this team? Because we're seeing the data right now, although it's not pretty game to game or quarter to quarter. We are seeing the data in which we need to see out of this team building good habits and just sustaining them through these dog days of the NBA because January, as we all know, we're just waiting for All-Star break at this point in time. And then after All-Star break, it's a sprint to the finish line downhill the last 20 games. And really the Celtics, they want to be playing well going into the playoffs and they want to be playing their best basketball into the playoffs where they bring energy, intensity, and that level of play in which we need to see out of the Celtics during Justin Solo moment.
Jeez, there we
Justin
go. There we
Solo
go.
moment.
Sorry about that. That's on me right there.
But the Celtics, regardless, it's right now. We've never covered a defending title team. We've seen other teams defend the title, but we've never really covered one ourselves, and that's what's really. It's tilting the expectations one way or the other. If you're a more assertive Celtics fan, if you're a more laid back Celtics fan / analyst, some people are saying, "Oh, we won the title last year. Yeah, it's fine. Blah blah blah. We'll be there later." We've been kind of annoyed with that conversation because we still need to build the good habits. But then some other people, more say on this broadcast with us, we all four, I think, have been more assertive in terms of building those good habits. But it really lies somewhere in the middle of they want to be a little laid back right now, save their energy for later, but they also want to be building those good habits. And of course, you want to end up with at least the second seed in the Eastern
Right.
Conference moving forward. So that's really the conversation with the Boston Celtics
I mean,
at
look
this
at
point
the
in time in January.
look
Well,
at the Cavs and Thunder. I think
Right.
that they're a perfect example of what you're explaining right now, Seamus, is a team who's really just putting the torch on throughout the beginning of the season. I just looked at the standings. They're both at I think the Cavaliers only have 4 losses and the Thunder only have 5 right now, which is astronomical type numbers, but how
That
long
was
can they
us
maintain
last
that?
year.
Well, and here's my only question, and obviously, Justin, I'll give you the floor for your flowers in just a second. I do want to say this before I do that, though. My only concern with this, and I guess I can tell, I think you're kind of in the same spot with it, Seamus, is that we've seen the Celtics, and again, there's a new aspect to it. They are the defending champions; they have been there, but we've seen this whole Celtics turn it on in the regular season. It's like, oh, okay, well, they're not going to do it right now, but they're going to turn it on and for a 2-week stretch. And then the playoffs would creep in. And then you would see those habits just kind of creep in where, oh, you're up 3-2 at home. They'll turn it on in game 7, right? So I do think we have seen some correlation between the Celtics getting complacent in the regular season and the Celtics getting complacent in the postseason. So that's my one concern with it. Now, there are different aspects. Like you said, they're NBA champions. I will say this. They can't do it. The league has gotten so much better, and to go back to back is so difficult. So they can't do it. They need to be, I'm sorry. They need at least the young guys, Tatum, Brown, Pritchard, Porzingis, White, those guys, they need to be in go mode for 82 games and then some. I can understand when you look at, I guess Porzingis, he's a little injury prone. Horford, Holiday, I get it. You're not going to be in go mode all the time. You're going to take a step back to the regular season. But those guys who are in their prime, no, you go. You go. You get those habits down so you're ready to go for April. They did it last year, and I think it was really a key contributor to them winning the title.
Yeah, if you want to win the title and you want to go back to back, you should be in go mode. You absolutely should be in go mode. And not only win the title, I mean, not only has a team not gone back to back in 6 or 7 years, no team who's won the finals the previous year gets past the second round in the next year. So, if we think it's harder to get to the final, it's harder to get to the conference finals. You don't even make it to the conference finals if you won a championship in the last 7 years. So, Celtics, obviously, I think they're going to prioritize their health at the end of the day. I think you're going to continue to see Al Horford sit on back-to-backs as well as Kristaps Porzingis. But you have the luxury of doing that with how deep that this roster can be. Obviously, you saw some great minutes tonight from Luke Cornett. You saw some solid minutes tonight from Neemias Queta as well. So talk about that center rotation where your first two in that center rotation, one's injury prone and one's a little bit on the older side. You get guys like Luke Cornett and Neemias Queta who have improved significantly in their roles this year.